Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X-Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X-Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X-Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomenon, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X-Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X-Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X-Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X-Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light. Welcome to Mission Evolution Radio Show with Gwilda Wiyaka, bringing together today's leading experts to uncover ever-deepening spiritual truths and the latest scientific developments in support of the evolution of humankind. For more information on Mission Evolution Radio with Gwilda Wiyaka, visit www.missionevolution.org. And now, here's the host of Mission Evolution, Miss Gwilda Wiyaka.
Hello, dear friends. This is Mission Evolution Radio Show, where we share innovative thoughts with today's leading scientific and esoteric experts supporting the path to unity and enlightenment. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka. This hour we'll be exploring evolution, ETs, and the spiritual energy crisis. The possibility of extraterrestrial life is a major human fascination. We've all heard about Roswell, Area 51, UFOs, ET abductions, and visitations from star beings. Yet this fascination is not new. In the ancient Hopi Kachina dances, each dancer was reputed to enter a trance and serve as a surrogate to a corresponding star being. Through the surrogate, the star being was able to provide information and energetic transmissions for the tribe. The Lakota and many other native tribes believed they came from the stars. There are also Celtic legends of the Irish having extraterrestrial origins. Rites and ceremonies designed to access star beings, gain spiritual information, and energetic transmissions have long been practiced across many cultures. We're now entering into a critical time of human evolution and are deeply in need of spiritual guidance. Do ETs really exist? And if so, can we also access extraterrestrial light or sources to light our way? With us this hour to explore this fascinating topic is Richard Lawrence. Richard is a spiritual teacher, international best-selling author of 12 books, executive secretary of the Aetherius Society for Europe, and a close disciple and friend of yoga master Dr. George King, who passed over 20 years ago. Richard has made thousands of radio and TV appearances around the world and written hundreds of newspaper and magazine articles. He was a former columnist of the Observer National Newspaper, UK, and a co-presenter on national radio station LBC. His website, richardlawrence.co.uk. Richard, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for inviting me, Gwilda.
So you're clear over in the UK. This is a bit of a stretch, huh?
Yeah, it's good though. It's good. You're in a very significant area.
Yeah,
As am I, actually. As am
uh,
I.
I'm clear
Yeah.
up on top of a mountain here. It's pretty
Are you
significant and
really?
cold. Yeah, yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh
So
boy.
you're the executive secretary of the Aetherius Society. What is the Aetherius Society?
Actually, we have two executive secretaries. One is me. I'm in, as you know, London, and we have another one in Los Angeles, a very good close friend of mine called Brian Caneep. And the Aetherius Society was founded in 1955. It was founded by Dr. George King, whom you mentioned, founded in England. He later moved to America. And it was founded because of the transmissions, which you also referred to, the communications he was receiving from beings from other planets, and not only to propagate or teach, spread those teachings, but even more so to carry out the missions they were bequeathing to us, to the world, really, for anyone who wants to join in with them.
So I've got some real questions about the ETs and where you're getting he and you were getting the information from.
Sure.
Are these actually little green men, or is it
Oh
a light
gosh,
information, or is it metaphor? What are we dealing with here?
you sound like something from the 50s there, if you don't mind me saying, little green men. Yeah, no. No, well, I don't know of any little green men. I'm not saying there aren't any in the universe, but these are highly advanced spiritual intelligences. And as far as the Aetherius Society is concerned, some of the most advanced, elevated beings. I mean, here we are leading up to Christmas. The Star of Bethlehem was not a star, clearly. If you believe in the Star of Bethlehem, I know some people don't, even within churches don't nowadays, but for thousands of years people did, and many still do, and it was apparently a star that hovered over a stable. Well, we know it wasn't a star. Star would have destroyed the planet, as a matter of fact, if it had come that close. It was clearly some type of UFO, and the people following it were clearly, we're told, very wise, and this was to herald the birth of an interplanetary being, we believe, one of several, not too many, but several who've come through the ages. Others would be Sri Krishna, the Lord Buddha, Confucius, and others. So they're very evolved. The ones who've come to Earth are very evolved.
So the interplanetary beings, like Christ and Krishna and so on, were they born with a genetic predisposition to be able to channel this spiritual information?
They were incarnated in, for them, an extremely limited, and I would say, I don't know if this is the right word, but painful manner, because they are so evolved, but they agreed, and this is what the Indians, the Asian Indians would call an avatar. They agreed to be incarnated through the womb of a woman. Moses is another one, for example, in order to live here and take karma, as we might call it, for doing so, and thereby live here and spread teachings that, yes, in certain cases were channeled to them, but in certain cases were built within them, which they knew, which they brought from wherever they came to our world.
So they're a translation point.
Okay, that's an interesting phrase. Yes, they stand out. I think they have certain characteristics that mark them out, certainly the ones I've named and some others. I would like to stress one thing, that so often these great avatars on our world were male, and this is not because they actually necessarily were male intelligences. It was because of the backward, primitive nature of this planet and its sexism and so on through history, including within spirituality in many cases, that they required to use physical male bodies to carry out their missions. But in certain cases, and Jesus would be a notable one, they were very much female too. And this is just the way they, in this limited world, they had to operate in those days.
Well, you know, Jesus had a counterpart, Mary, and Buddha had a counterpart, Kuan Yin. So was that actually a counterpart of them, or was it a partner here?
Well, I would personally believe that Mary Magdalene, while being a remarkable individual, was not of the same caliber as the Master Jesus, as I would call him. Certainly acted as a female partner to some degree in that mission, but was very much from this world. So what I was there talking about, I mean, on advanced planets, they aren't limited to a sex. I mean, they can be both sexes combined in one intelligence. And the only point I wanted to make there, because I think it's a shame, really, that so often when one is talking about the great masters through history, whether you have my beliefs or any other belief, they often tend to be male. And I think that's the reason. And that's what I wanted to stress, that in fact, they aren't just male. They're often male and female intelligences who've had to use a male body because of this world and the state it was in. That's humanity.
Now we're moving into, that's okay. Now we're moving into a more balanced time as we move into the age of Aquarius, and the male-female balance is coming back. If we follow this logic, does that mean that maybe we'll start seeing some female masters here in the future?
Absolutely, and female masters from this world as well, of which there are already many. And you know, people talk about sometimes the Great Brotherhood, the Ascended Brotherhood, and so on. Actually, they aren't necessarily male either. And sometimes they're called the Great White Brotherhood, and they're very often they're of all races. So yes, I think for sure, and it's actually our belief in the Aetherius Society that in the New Age and in the future, because the Mother Earth is a female intelligence, the planet greater than any avatar even, that the world actually will be run predominantly by females.
There's an interesting thought there, isn't it? Because if you go back in some of the native tribes, they were matriarchal as well.
Yeah, true. That's true. You'd know a lot more about that than I do. But yes, that's good to hear, really.
So who's Dr. George King?
Dr. King is a most remarkable person. He came from another world. He didn't like to talk about that or even admit to it too much, other than in very private company. And even then, it wasn't really discussed. But we know that he was, and now we're saying so freely because we've just published his biography, and it can be disclosed. He was born here in Britain. He was an extremely unusual person, even as a child. I mean, there are a number of children who have psychic abilities, and he was one of those. But he was on a quest to find truth. And he was about 20, I think, when the Second World War broke out here, and people were called up, and he didn't join the fighting services. He actually joined the peace services. He was in the fire services, very dangerous task as well, in the Blitz in London. But he was really seeking out spiritual wisdom. He wasn't satisfied by the teachings he was getting in the religion into which he was raised and brought up, which was the Church of England. And after the war, he turned to yoga philosophy, which in 1945 was extremely unusual thing to do in England, especially for a man. But he didn't just do that. He turned to it very, very vigorously. He practiced advanced forms of yoga, by which I mean Kundalini yoga, Raja yoga, Jnana yoga, if people are familiar with those, for say 8 hours a day. And he would have a job as well. And he did this for 10 years. Yeah.
Well, we're going to have to pick up with yoga and Dr. George King on the other side of a commercial break, but you and I do need to take a little pause. Richard and I will return shortly, so don't you go away. You're listening to the Mission Evolution Radio Show, coming to you on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. We will be back. It's hard to listen to the news without realizing we're living in volatile, unprecedented times. Yet never has there been such an opportunity to transform the human condition. As old structures fail, where can we find the guidance to co-create a better way? Find Your Path Home is an ever-evolving, leading-edge information, education, and healing resource center designed to support and guide you on your path to unity and enlightenment. Based on sound principles employed by shaman worldwide, we provide techniques that can support you through the current transitions, offering online shamanic classes, international long-distance shamanic healing sessions, complimentary Mission Evolution radio episodes and Stairway to Heaven TV vignettes, seminars, retreats, and much more. All of this can be found on findyourpathhome.com.
So I was watching the X Zone TV channel last night when I was abducted by aliens, and they kept repeating to me over and over again, simultv.com, simultv.com.
What's simultv.com?
That's what I asked them. They had it written on the side of their UFO.
How do you spell that?
UFO.
No, I mean simultv.com.
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 Right. simultv.com.
Interesting that you were abducted by aliens in a simultv.com UFO last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I remember now last night I was awakened from a deep sleep. My great-grandmother was standing there. She said she'd come from the hereafter to tell me about simultv.com. She even spelled it out for me. simultv.com, sonny boy.
simultv.com.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Guys, you'll never guess what my psychic guru just told me.
simultv.com.
Exactly. Are you guys psychic too?
Of course.
We all know about simultv.com. simultv.com.
Shamanic healing is the key to personal empowerment. Why? All four levels of our being, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, must be addressed for us to enjoy balanced, healthy, abundant lives. Yet there are few provisions for spiritual or energetic healing. Shamanism, found at the root of all cultures, is a very effective spiritual healing modality. To find quality shamanic healing you can trust, regardless of where you live, look no further than Find Your Path Home long-distance shamanic healing program. All Path Home long-distance healing practitioners have been trained and certified through Path Home Shamanic Art School. Change your life. Live abundantly. Schedule a long-distance shamanic healing session with Gwilda Wiyaka or one of her quality practitioners today at findyourpathhome.com. Welcome back. This is the Mission Evolution Radio Show, missionevolution.org. We're dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. Our special guest this hour is Richard Lawrence. His website, richardlawrence.co.uk. Richard, we were just starting to get into something pretty interesting, and that's Dr. King and the ancient practice of yoga. Now, my understanding of yoga is it helps a person align their body in such a way that they can receive spiritual information. Am I erroneous there?
No, I think that's well, I don't want to sound patronizing, but I think that's far better than a lot of definitions you'll find, because a lot of people nowadays, and it's very much, it's popular now, let's face it, and is generally perceived as something for toning up the body, keeping fit, and so on. And I'm not saying it doesn't do that, but you're right. There was a spiritual purpose behind it. And the real meaning of the word yoga is union with Brahma or God or the divine, or with your real self, you could say, which is within us all. And that was the goal. And of course, the advanced forms of meditation and certain mantra practices and kundalini practices and so on will take you to a very, very elevated state. Matter of fact, one thing I've discovered in my studies over the decades is that there are people who think they've arrived at the destination, they might call it enlightenment, for example, when they really haven't. I mean, I'm not taking away from, they might have a great sense of peace and a great sense of well-being and feel very settled in their life and living in the present and so on. But it's quite a journey, and it's a journey, and I haven't attained it, by the way. I'm not saying I have, but it's a journey that you certainly know. There's no ifs, no buts, and great powers in one way or another will come to you in the process. They should be used only in service, and you may choose not to use them, but they will. I'm sure, actually, from your knowledge of indigenous cultures and so on, you'll know very much about that.
There's one concept that I found kind of cross-culturally as well. I've studied under a lot of different indigenous elders. And that's that when we come into this world, okay, from spirit into this world, only so much of us, only so many bandwidths of our frequency can come into this coarse environment and into these physical bodies.
Yeah.
So is that opening up that Dr. King was doing through yoga, accessing greater bandwidths of ourselves and therefore greater bandwidths of all that is?
Very interesting question, actually, I must say. I think that in his case, because he came from where I said he came from, which was, in other words, he was already above what we would call enlightenment or samadhi or whatever phrase one wants to use, even nirvana, in our world. He came from a place and a state which was even above that. I would say that he was, and this is me, not him saying this, he was trying to regain his natural state of consciousness in those years of very, very intense practice, because it wasn't normal or natural to him to be without. It's not the powers, by the way, that matter. They're just a sort of sign along the way, and they should be used correctly, but it's part of the journey towards full enlightenment and oneness with the divine. And I would say yes, with other people too. In fact, I've noticed actually sometimes people can come back from, as you call it, the world of spirit, I think you called it, be reborn here, and they can sort of start off with great. You can see it in certain writers, artists, poets, composers. They start off with great inspiration and flair, and then the longer they stay on this realm, it seems, in certain cases, the more detuned they come, and in some cases, all their greatest works are done in their 20s and 30s, and not always, but it's fairly common in the arts. And I think it's because they became detuned by this very basic realm and what you're calling a fraction of the bandwidth. But by entering into these sorts of spiritual practices, one can maintain that level of consciousness and even enhance it.
So I want to back up a little bit. You spoke about the place that Dr. King came from. What place is that?
Well, he came from another planet, I believe, along with some of the other intelligence I've named and other intelligences. I don't believe he was from this world. It's not something he pushed himself, but that's my belief. So if somebody didn't even want to believe that, I could describe it as though he was a very enlightened, realized soul, should we say, before he was ever born in that life. And so it was more a question in his case of reclaiming the consciousness he'd already attained before birth.
Do you think his going through that process of losing it to become incarnate and then reclaiming it kind of left an energetic trail for the rest of us to follow?
That's a great point. Yes, I do, actually. I do. It's because one of the points he always wanted to make, and he impressed it upon me in no uncertain terms when I was, as you rightly said, his disciple, his student, and his friend, was that he believed we could all do what he did and what the great ones do. He wasn't a believer that only a few people have a gift and they're special and other people can't do it. And as a matter of fact, I think the impression I get, because I didn't know him until he was in his 50s, but is that he was disappointed really by then already a bit. I mean, he was certainly always a very positive and a person. And never lost that faith in human potential. But I think he had expected, from the impressions I got, some of the people that he knew to have progressed more than they did already. And I think if you look at his earlier writings, they are much more, there's great expectation because of what he could do, of what everybody else could do. So that was built into him. And yes, you call it a trail for us to follow. I would agree with that. And he always had it. And he turned to me one day, we were having a walk, and he said, "There is nothing that I've done that you couldn't do." And I actually, as he said it, I found that hard to believe in my mind. I listened to him. I wasn't going to argue with him. And I think he must have picked up my thought because he pointed out to me, although we were out on a walk by a river, actually. And he said, "And I really believe that." And I thought, okay, point made.
So he came to assist in evolutionary process.
Yes, indeed. And evolution was absolutely his thing. Your title, Mission Evolution, he would absolutely love. That's really him. I mean, I've never encountered a person who was so committed, even in history that I've studied, so committed to their mission as he was. And he felt the only reason we're here is to evolve. And that's what it's all about. And that's what it's about for humanity. And that's what we need to do, especially in these days.
Yeah, these days are particularly important. And it seems like we're kind of the extra ones out there. There's quite a bit of focus on the Earth at this time. I mean, there has been for millennia, but that's an eye blink, blink of the eye in the universal timing. Why do you think that is? What's going on?
Well, there's a great change going on, we believe, and our key date, Gwilda, in our calendar is July the 8th. And that's because we believe that on July the 8th, 1964, the Earth, the Mother Earth, as I mentioned, and if there was one thing that motivated Dr. King above all other things, it was the Mother Earth, even over and above humanity. And we believe that on that date, she received a great cosmic initiation. But there is a tragedy, which is, in one way, there's a tragedy, which is that she's not taking, we believe, and never has taken, her dues. She's held herself back. I mean, we could talk about all of us being limited on this very worldly plane with the terrible things that happen in this physical realm that we're in, but it's nothing compared to the limitation she suffers and is willing to suffer and is willing to sacrifice for all of us. And she's holding back her light, essentially. And this is a tragic thing.
This I've seen. I mean, there's scientific evidence that we're entering into an area of the galaxy that has a lot more luminosity. And that luminosity is being fed to the sun, and through the sun's electromagnetic field being fed to the core of the Earth. And then that's being fed back to the surface, and we're not coming along on that ride. What's going to happen there?
That's fascinating. That's very interesting what you said there. Thank you for that. And I would say what we believe is there will come an end. There will come a time. And actually, if you look at some of the prophecies, I mean, just to name one you would know far better than me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I seem to have read that the Hopi Indians believe in a great change and the coming from the sky of a being called Patana. Would you know that?
Yes, I've absolutely heard that.
Okay, I've got that right. Okay, and you'll find that kind of belief in numerous traditions. I mean, obviously the Mayans, there's like the combination of prophecy of total disaster, and you've got the biblical prophecies, you've got the Book of Revelations, you've got Indian warnings of the Kali Yuga, and all the various traditions all seem to combine, and even the ancient Greek traditions from Hesiod and so forth, on two salient points. One, dire catastrophe on our world, and two, a great period of light following it. And some have predicted the end of the world, of course, and some would even say Nostradamus predicted the end of the world. Our belief is that we'll only be allowed to carry on for so long because we, the human race, are actually, although we don't seem to think so, less important than the planet, if it comes down to it. And this is my slight disappointment with most ecologists that I hear. I think it's great, some of the things they're doing, some of them, but they will always tend to say, when I hear what they're saying, we've got to think of our children and our grandchildren and our future. They're talking about for the benefit of humanity. Very rarely will you hear them talk about for the benefit of the Earth as a living intelligence.
Exactly.
Sorry.
Huge loss. We're going to have to pick up with that on the other side of a quick pause.
Right.
Richard and I will return to our discussion shortly, so you stay right there. This is Mission Evolution Radio Show. We're coming to you on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. On the other side, we'll pick up with Doom, Gloom, or Salvation. Don't go away.
Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X-Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X-Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X-Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomenon, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X-Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X-Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X-Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X-Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light.
Welcome back. This is the Mission Evolution Radio Show, missionevolution.org, bringing leading-edge information supporting the path to enlightenment. We're speaking with Executive Secretary of the Aetherius Society for Europe, Richard Lawrence. His website, richardlawrence.co.uk. Richard, we were starting to get into some pretty interesting things, and it can sound like doom and gloom, and I personally have read all sorts of different prophecies. As you know, comparative mythology doesn't show a very happy ending here. However, I like the idea that on the other side of this, there's a time of enlightenment, and that seems to be pretty consistent across cultures as well. What does that time of enlightenment hold for us?
Well, there is one thing I'd like to just throw in, if I may, just before that, which is I don't want to be a gloom and doom monger, because the main focus and purpose, actually, because you asked me earlier what the cosmic intelligences were communicating and so on through Dr. King, our main reason for being is to actually work to reduce the impact of these disasters. And actually we believe that not only us, but we believe we're an essential cog in the plan. We have been able to do that, and Dr. King especially has been able to do that, and that it would have been far, far worse than it is now. Moving forward to this age of enlightenment, or some people call it heaven on earth, or whatever it's called, in biblical terms, there is great reference to the sorting of the wheat from the chaff. And even I found in some metaphysical circles, there hasn't been a really good answer to what happens to the chaff. And one of the things, and it came to me actually very strongly, I did a pilgrimage earlier this year to a holy place in Cornwall, and some words came to me. I'm not saying it was any kind of message or a communication from anywhere in particular, but some words settled in my mind, which were, and the chaff shall become as wheat. And so you might say that our aim is not to sort of have a sorting where some people, even a few in number, just become enlightened and goodness knows what happens to the rest. Our idea is to try and spread enlightenment, try and spread evolution, if you like, as widely as possible, so that when this final moment comes, when humanity can no longer hold back the Mother Earth because it's decreed that she must move forward in her evolution, then as many people as possible are ready. And our main way or methodology, if you like, of bringing this about is sending out as much spiritual energy as possible to the world, because that raises consciousness. by all those who accept it. And this brings, I mean, enlightenment is not an intellectual state alone. You certainly, you'll become far more logical and focused, and various qualities will emerge, great concentration as well as psychic powers and so forth. But enlightenment itself is a state of being. It's a state of vibration. It's a state of energy. And this state of energy is what the world needs. So it's a mission of enlightenment.
So let me see if I've got this right. You're saying that there's certain currents that are predestined, but within that, the future is subjective?
It can be changed. As a matter of fact, even in the personal, if you like, psychic level, which at one time I did a lot of myself, there is no point to it at all if you can't change it. I mean, the only purpose of astrology or any of these disciplines is to see your destinies if you can actually do something about it. Otherwise, it would just be a fatalistic exercise. And so it is globally. And we are part of everything that we do, and we're not alone, as I said earlier, but everything that we do in the Aetherius Society is on behalf of the world as a whole. The more we cooperate with the Mother Earth, the more we love the Mother Earth and send the energy of love to the Mother Earth. It's not so much that she actually needs it, it's a karmic necessity, if you like, that we have an outpouring of energy to our world. And then, I don't know if I'm actually answering your question here, but then that will tend to bring a rise in consciousness, which is a step towards enlightenment. Did I answer your question, Gwilda?
I think you did a good job of it.
Good.
So the way I would look at it is we're all, there's this great big wave in the ocean, and we're all surfing it in our own way, and we have choices on how to surf it.
Yes, true. Yeah.
If more of us move towards this enlightenment piece, and let's face it, we're being bombarded with negative information and energy through, the media and the games and the violence and, all this hype and hysteria that we get on Facebook and every place else. So how are we going to counteract that?
Yeah, and by the way, I came up with something similar to your surfing analogy, which is, as a writer, I came up with a thing, your destiny is written, but you are the editor.
I like that. Yeah, I like that.
But what are we going to do to counteract it? Well, again, it's sending out in numerous ways as much spiritual energy. I mean, the key teaching in the Aetherius Society, and this is really our whole reason for existence, is service. And there are numerous ways of serving. And there are some wonderful ways of serving in, if you like to say, material ways, through charities and through relief efforts. And, as we've had in New Zealand recently, from volcanoes, from earthquakes, from poverty, all these things are essential. But in the end, the thing that's going to really make the big difference is spiritual energy. In fact, spiritual energy will even inspire people to make these efforts. And also there's a massive deficit on the spiritual energy front. Not so many people are working in that area very, very actively. And so that's really where we put our focus. And that's the thing that's going to bring the change.
So is spiritual energy more unified, and our planet at this point pretty polarized? And so the unified energy starts to bring out the better in people?
It does, and it's sent out into what you might call the mind belt, into the ethers, if you like, through various methods, prayer being one, mantra being another, various rituals of various kinds, which are for the betterment of all, which aren't trying to control anybody at all, but are sending out love. So if you have a war situation, you and some people will pray for a certain outcome which they believe is in the best interest of the area, but that is trying to condition or control the minds or the actions or the behavior of people in the area. That's not sending out spiritual energy.
That's agenda, isn't it?
Well, and it's done a lot. I mean, over here, especially, we had all sorts of troubles in Ireland, and you'd have people of the different religions, Catholic or Protestant, putting out, opposite prayers for opposite results. And it's a kind of a magic, but it's not of itself a pure magic. When you send out spiritual energy, and in our case, we're very, very fortunate because we have a way, even after Dr. King's passing, of cooperating directly with people from other worlds in doing this. Then it's sent out for them to accept or not accept. It's not programmed with any specific dogma or determination of their behavior. It's pure love energy.
Then, which brings us back to, you said that Dr. King had powers. What were these powers?
Well, in the period that we were discussing, which was following the Second World War, in the period of the 1940s and early 50s, he had abilities which are fairly common, such as, mediumship abilities, healing abilities, clairvoyant abilities, or psychic perception abilities. Also ones that aren't so common. He learnt at will, and this I think is extremely difficult thing to do at will, to astrally project. He physically levitated as well. That means the physical body. And I know his niece actually, and she actually witnessed him doing this in her grandmother's house. And he did this more than once. He had even the power at one point of invisibility. He dealt in, this is something possibly familiar to you, certain devic rituals to do with weather and improving weather. So he had those sorts of powers, but they weren't his goal. His goal was purely the pursuit of truth. That's what he was working towards. But it did mean that he could raise the Kundalini, gained great physical strength, for example, when he did this and demonstrated this. And then he found out that the reason of all this was done was so that in 1954, when he was contacted by the master Aetherius, after whom we are named, he was able to be a medium for that intelligence. Mediumship is something that I find absolutely fascinating. But in a nutshell, the higher you're able to raise your consciousness, the higher the intelligence who can communicate through you. So that's a power of a kind.
So isn't it subject to translation? So you're getting this information, but then it has to come into human language, and isn't a lot lost there?
Very good point. I mean, I've done a lot of mediumship myself at a much more basic level, and one of the things that I didn't use the methods. His methods are far more advanced than anything that I do. Mine are more telepathic. And developed over the decades, and I have psychic perceptions as well to confirm that the authenticity of what I'm getting. But I went through a period where I was getting a number of poets and writers. It was quite interesting. I actually wrote a book called God's Guides and Guardian Angels, and some of the poems are in there. And sometimes when you're getting something very quickly like that, you have to you can't think much about it. You're right. In fact, if you do start thinking about it, you'll lose the focus because you're not there to bring in your own thoughts. In fact, you've got to put your thoughts aside and just focus on what you're getting. What I found after I'd written this down, and I handwrite it, was a poem that rhymed, that was in iambic tetrameters, which I'd never heard of, was written by two 17th century poets I'd never heard of, and used language from the 17th century. So I couldn't argue with that. That's one type of thing where the actual words had to be given to me. I think that's why they did it as a sort of exercise, really, because it won't rhyme and it won't have the same rhythm. Now
we're gonna have to go more into this again on the other side of a commercial break.
Okay.
Richard and I will be back shortly, so don't leave us now. This is the Mission Evolution Radio Show on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
If you are looking for a safe, zero-calorie natural option to the harmful artificial sweeteners on the market today, Just Like Sugar is what you're looking for. Just Like Sugar is a wonderful natural alternative for those health-conscious people who choose a calorie-restricted diet with a great, pure, sweet flavor that tastes just like sugar. Just Like Sugar is a great natural option for people suffering from diabetes and may be useful in restricted diet programs where standard sugars are not allowed and does not cause a laxative effect of some other sweeteners. Just Like Sugar comprises a perfect blend of chicory root fiber, natural calcium, natural vitamin C, and Just Like Sugar's sweetness comes from the natural flavors from the peel of the orange. Just Like Sugar is a natural alternative to harmful artificial sweeteners and will change the way that you believe all natural sweetener products taste. Just Like Sugar is available at your local Whole Foods markets, Wild Oats markets, Henry's, Sun Harvest, and many other fine natural food stores in the U.S., Canada, and worldwide. They are here, and they've been here for thousands of years, making their presence known in the shadows. They might be seen by a lonely motorist on a deserted road late at night, or by a frightened and confused husband in the bedroom he is sharing with his wife. But who are they? What do they want? Why are they here? Perhaps most concerning, has the government been aware of their presence all along? The new book by Ellie Marzulli, UFO Disclosure, the 70-year cover-up exposed, delves into the world of UFOs. Can full disclosure be soon? Order now and receive a free hour and 37-minute DVD on the UFO phenomenon. UFOs are real. Get both the book and the DVD, a $40 value, for only $19.99. To order your book and DVD today, go to lamarzulli.net. That's LAMARZULLI.net.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X-Zone, Sci-Fi, and Horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
Memorable dynamic presentations are a not-so-secret weapon in the business world. Do you have a powerful message that must be shared, but you haven't found a way to deliver that message? Do you want to be known as a top public speaker who gets amazing results? Are you ready to create and deliver your powerful message? Thomas Hides can help you create and deliver your speech to get the results you desire. Visit iconquality.com.
Did you expect your business to flourish, but instead it plateaued or didn't get off the ground yet? Would you like to achieve massive goals and discover new sources of income within your business? When you're ready to experience that type of success with fast results, Cindy Hendricks is the business coach for you. Her work with entrepreneurs and business owners has been life-changing. To get you and your business where you want to be, go to imaginemoresuccess.com.
Has the fear of public speaking stalled your business or personal life? What would you give to develop and maintain supreme confidence? Have an invaluable private program to always perform at your best. Imagine how you would feel. You can have all that and so much more today with Thomas Hides' life-changing course called Number One Fear Unleashed. Visit numberonefear.com and be liberated from your fear of public speaking.
This is Mission Evolution Radio Show, bringing together gifted people of service to the world. To suggest a topic or a guest, email us at info@missionevolution.org. And speaking of gifted people of service to the world, our guest this hour is Richard Lawrence. His website, richardlawrence.co.uk. So, Richard, at this point, I'm sure my listeners, our listeners are going, okay, so how do we do this? So where does the person get started?
Well, the only reason I mentioned what I do at all is to illustrate that I have experience at that level, and I met dozens and if not hundreds of mediums, and some are, I think, more accurate than others. I find it very difficult to do. I find I have to concentrate and work very hard. People who say it's easy, I don't trust them. In the terms that it sounds dogmatic, but I don't think it is, not to do properly. But all of that, and that's the kind of mediumship I think you'll find from other people on the whole too, in one way or another, is way below the type of method used by Dr. King. That's the only reason I really mentioned it. in his case, he would, because of this 10 years of intensive yoga training for 8 hours a day, something I haven't come across, even claimed by anybody in the West who was doing a job. Actually, anyone in the East who was doing a job, for that matter. I don't know. I'm not saying there aren't any. But he did this, and he sort of didn't do the things that most people would be doing in their 30s and 20s. This is what he did. And as a result, he could raise the force of Kundalini, if listeners are familiar with that, into a high psychic center. So when he, and I'm taking up your question about translation, when he received a communication, say, from the master Aetherius, who came from Venus, or from another intelligence from another world, even the master Jesus himself, the wonderful practice, the 12 blessings, can't think of anything better at Christmas time than the 12 blessings. When he received this, and in fact, may I just quickly say, we have a website, 12blessings.org. People can join in with us on that site. Now, when he did this, he was receiving a beam of pure thought onto a psychic center. It wasn't words like I was describing there. It wasn't a particular message in a particular language. It was a pure thought transmission from an extraterrestrial being. This then got translated through his brain and spoken by his voice, his larynx, whatever it may be, and then recorded, tape recorded. And that's the end result, so that the language that came out was a translation really through his brain of the different emanations in pure vibration from extraterrestrial beings. The voices are completely recognizable. You can hear them, a recording from 1956 or something, then a recording, say, from 1979, and it's exactly the same voice with the same intelligence.
So he was actually channeling the extraterrestrial and recording
he
that.
Was.
And
he
so
was.
his personal voice would change accordingly?
It would. But what I really was trying to stress there was that he was using a method of trance, and I know it's getting a bit esoteric and a bit technical, which I don't think is used by people, even mediums, not the ones I've met, even when they're in trance. I don't think they would know where the Kundalini was. And that doesn't take away from them. I'm not criticizing them for that. But it's all I'm trying to say, it's a different state of being than the one he had to employ to bring through. And I think this is important, Gwilda, because you will get people who say, come on my weekend workshop, and by the end of it you can channel Saint Germain, Mother Mary, almost whoever you choose. And I'm afraid I don't think that's possible for the average person, because you have to be capable. It's rapport. So to be in rapport, you have to be at the level of, during the transmission, the transmitter.
So it's an inside job. In other words, the light is only as clear as the window through which it shines. So these people might be getting some esoteric information, but then it's subject to pollution, and because the channel itself is not as clear. I mean, clearly, Dr. King put in his dues to get to the point that he could be a more clear channel.
Yeah, that's
for
right.
Those of us that are trying to participate in the solution rather than being part of the problem, and yet we want to be able to bring this through. How can we do this? How can we find a way so that we have checks and balances within our limited being? We obviously aren't necessarily enlightened when we come. What can we best do to serve here?
Well, I think what we can best do to serve, because although I do, as I say, channel myself, it's not something that I recommend everybody does, strangely enough. I mean, I'm not saying they shouldn't. I do it myself. But it's not essential, I don't think. I think probably better and more useful for most people would be healing, would be prayer, would be mantra radiation, would be, a variety of transmission of energy methodology, which everyone can do, everyone can learn. I mean, the 12 blessings, the practice of the 12 blessings, I would recommend above all others. That's something everyone can do. I do it myself. We do it all the time here, regularly here. We do it online. And that, I think, is the best thing. If somebody wants, though, for some reason to take up mediumship, and they're welcome if they want to contact me through the website you mentioned, I'm happy to help. I would be very careful, though, because there are many things that can go wrong. I must say that from personal experience. And you've got to have real control over your mind. real control over your imagination, or you can get a mixture. And I've been on the radio with mediums who get a mixture. And that's quite dangerous, because some of it's really good, and because it's really good, people believe them, and then they make the odd mistake. The mistake can be misleading, and it's believed in because of what, it's what's good. And so you've got to, I wouldn't do it unless you can really hone it down. That's why I say, for me, I work very, very hard and concentrate and have to focus to make sure that it's accurate.
There's a lot of spiritual misinformation out there. I mean, we're kind of like one big modern New Age mess, where people, like you say, have gone out half-cocked, had a weekend workshop, and declare themselves as authorities. How can we tell the difference between someone that is sharing reliable information and the self-appointed authorities?
Well, the great news is that within us all is something above channeling, something above psychic ability, and that's our own inner self. I mean, if I may, I'll read the last few lines of my book, because it sums it all up. That's God's Guides and Guardian Angels, which I wrote with Mark Bennett. Whether you channel or not, you can still benefit from the wisdom, teaching, and inspiration brought by some of those who do. And you can develop your own psychic and spiritual abilities, perhaps in even more useful ways, and apply them in service to others, knowing that you'll be cooperating with higher forces. And as you do so, please remember that there's something even more precious than any powers or abilities you may develop along the way. It is silent, it is still, it is the voice within. And so I think the answer to your question is that you discriminate. You look at the claims that people are making, and look at the people who are making them and what they are doing and what their track record is, but you judge on the content of the teachings. And that's one thing Dr. King said about his own communications in a television interview. He said, either it's what I say it is, which is contacts with beings from other worlds, or it's coming from, I think he said, my puny little mind. But he said, if it is coming from my puny little mind, I must be pretty special. He's not saying that he is. In the end, you judge by the 12 blessings or the 9 freedoms, and with any other channeler, what's their message? What are they doing? What difference is it making? And that's how I would judge. I wouldn't expect anyone to take my word for anything I say. Have a look at the teachings that we offer and form your own conclusions. And that's the way you'll find the truth.
So would you remind our listeners how they can find the 12 blessings?
So they can find the 12 blessings, as I mentioned, at 12blessings.org, 12 blessings. Also our website, that's the Aetherius Society, is aetherius.org, aetherius.org. And we've just written the biography of Dr. George King, that's Brian Kneep and myself, and that's called The King Who Came to Earth.
So how can the information from extraterrestrials impact the spiritual energy crisis that we touched in on?
Very much so, because as far as Dr. King is concerned, that was the only real crisis on Earth. And if you think about it, you've got, say, a war, and you want to bring peace, and politicians negotiate. I mean, there's been negotiations of one kind or another going on in parts of the Middle East for over 3,000 years. There's been dispute over land, the so-called promised land, or whatever else. And in the end, what's going to change that situation, as with every other situation, including poverty, when you get to the point where people who are extremely wealthy don't want to see poverty, they'd rather remove poverty than buy a jet. To get there, you have to have a change of consciousness. I'm afraid a peace treaty may not last. I'm afraid financial aid, great as it is, may not last. May be siphoned off to the wrong parties. Still give it, but it's not a lasting solution. The lasting solution is spiritual energy sent out through prayer, sent out through mantra, sent out through cooperating with higher beings, and that can bring lasting change.
Well, Richard, that's a beautiful, beautiful message, and thank you so much for all your service in the world. Unfortunately, as always, time has flown, and now we're out of it. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
So much.
It's been a real pleasure working with you. Our guest this hour has been Richard Lawrence. Richard is a spiritual teacher, international best-selling author of 12 books, and executive secretary of the Aetherius Society for Europe. His website, richardlawrence.co.uk. For our amazing episode collection, visit our website, www.missionevolution.org. This has been Mission Evolution Radio Show with Gwilda Wiyaka on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Join us next time as this mission continues, bringing information, resources, and support to an evolving world.